Hey everybody, welcome back to CIS 39. Today we are going to work on lesson number 20, our last lesson of the semester. And today we'll be learning how we can use stamps and curves to create paths and terrain. All right, so let's do it. So lesson number 20. So all the step-by-step directions are right here in this lesson 20.x file, and then we're also going to have an image file that we're going to be using for this lesson as well. Now, slight change to the direction, the step-by-step directions. It says here that you can open Photoshop and create a new document. Because I don't know if you guys have Photoshop, what I did is I went ahead and created that document and I put a link to it here on the class website. So you don't need to use Photoshop. You can just download this file right here. Also today we're going to be continuing with our Wild West town. So let's go to Maya, and I'm going to go ahead and set my project to the Wild West town. Okay, and then you don't actually have to use the entire town if you don't want to for this lesson. You can open up just the homestead because that's the only structure that we are going to be adding terrain to. Okay. Now, if you notice that it has this weird flashing, it's just because this is a really large scene in terms of its scale. So this is the house that we're going to texture. As soon as I get the camera closer to it, it should stop doing that flickering effect. Okay. It's just one of it's the camera's near and far clipping plane that are causing it to flash like that, but it's not a problem. Okay. In fact, if you want, you can even just get rid of all the other stuff to simplify the scene. All right. Next, we need to make sure that we're using the correct units. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to download that image file that I mentioned here into the source images folder for that project. So I'm going to right click, choose Save Link As, and then go to my desktop, my Wild West project, source images, and then save it. All right, let's go back to Maya. All right. Next, we want to make sure that we're using the same units that Mudbox is using. So I'm going to go into my preferences. And I've been getting this error message when I go to open it, but it seems like if I just try it a couple times, it finally will open. And then under settings, you want, when the person made these models, they were using meters. So remember, Mudbox uses centimeters. So make sure to switch that over. And then save it. And then next, we want to make sure that our grid is set to the right display settings. So under grid options, you want to make sure that you have it set to 1101. Okay, so you should see a grid. Where's the grid? Oh, it's not turned on. There's the grid. All right, so there's our grid over there. Okay, all right, so we'll use that later. Next, we're going to go ahead and create a polygon plane that will be the terrain around the house. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and move that terrain over here to our house. And then scale it. What did it just do? There we go. All right. Make sure you have a lot of room around the house. Now for your final project, you don't have to make it completely flat. For your final project, if you want to, you can make it, you can add some subdivisions to the terrain. Don't make it too many because it'll increase the polygon count like really, really high. But you can just do something like that, and then you can go into vertex mode. There's that. And then select the vertex, press W to open up the move tool, press B to turn on soft selection, press and hold B, and then left or right drag to choose how big you want it to be, and then you can just add some bumps to your terrain. So if you want to put like a mountain or something, I don't know. And again, you don't have to do this, but if you want to just make your terrain more interesting by making it a little bit more uneven, feel free to do that. All right, let's go back to the way the terrain was originally with just one subdivision. Okay, super low poly count. Okay, next, we need to make sure that the UVs for this are fitting cleanly inside of the 0, 1 space. So I'm going to go to my UV menu, UV editor. And so you can see how the UVs go right up against the edge of the 0, 1 space, and we don't want to do that. We want to bring it in just a little bit. So I'm going to right click, choose UV. I'm going to tap, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to tap B to turn soft selection off. You shouldn't have to do that because you probably didn't do that when you first made this. So I'm just going to scale it in just a little tiny bit, and then right click, and then choose, actually it doesn't matter, I can just leave it like that. Okay, and here I can right click and go into object mode to turn the UVs off, or you can just click here. Okay, so our UVs are all set up. Now we can go ahead and apply a new material to this. I'm going to do that by right clicking and choosing assign new material, and then choose to add a new Lambert material to this, and then rename this something like ground material. All right, so last but not least, I'm going to attach to the color channel that white image file that I downloaded off of my website. All right, next, you're going to want to push the number 6 on the keyboard to turn on shading. And then for the render, make sure that you're using 2.0 or high quality viewport. So I'll use 2.0. All right, I think we're all set to export this. Oh, no, we're not. We got to paint the path on it. Okay, so in the last lesson, we talked about organization of space and paths. So for this house, we are going to go ahead and create a path that approaches our home and then wraps around and goes out the back by the back door. And to do that, we're going to paint directly onto this plane using a tool called the Paint 3D tool, or 3D Paint tool. So that's under the rendering menu set, under texturing, 3D Paint tool. And then you want to go to the options to open up this window. All right, as you can see, I got a little red circle. If I press B and then drag left or right, that'll change the size of it. You want to make it so it's just about the size of that front porch. And then what you can do is you can just left click drag and paint directly onto this surface. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. Undo, there we go. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and paint right along here. And we don't have to go right up to the doorstep. Okay, and then we don't have to make it perfectly straight. We can go ahead and add a little curve to it to make it a little bit more interesting looking. And then just continue painting like so. All right. So that's going to be where our path eventually is, of like a rock path. Okay, next, before I can export this, I need to click on Save Textures down here at the bottom. Now, once you click on that, you're now stuck with whatever you got. So make sure you're happy with your path before you click on Save Texture. All right, now we are ready to export this to Mudbox. So I'm going to create a duplicate of this, and I'm going to make sure that it's in the middle of the world so that Mudbox is happy with it. So let's go ahead and go to Edit, Duplicate Special, Options, and make sure that you reset those before you duplicate it. So I have plane number 2 that I am going to bring over roughly to the middle of the world. Okay, and then I am going to snap to grid using X, or you can click on this button right here, and then make sure that you're dead center in the world. And then once you're done, you can turn this off. Don't forget to turn that off. Remember, once you click on any of these snapping tools, they stay active until you deactivate them. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and scale this so it's in Mudbox friendly size, which we know is a roughly 2 by 2 square, like so. Okay. Next, I'm going to press Control A to bring up my channel box. And then notice we have non-1 values in here, so we always want to make sure we freeze transformations before exporting. So we're going to go Modify, Freeze Transforms. All right, and then we can also delete the history to be safe. Delete all type history. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and export this into an FBX file. So File, and then Export Selection. Make sure you got FBX. Okay, as you can see, I've already gone through the lesson. All right, so you won't have that there. Export Selection. Okay, and then now let's hop over to Mudbox. All right, in Mudbox, make sure that under your FBX settings that you have Import Materials and Textures Preferences. Make sure that you have Import Materials and Textures turned on, because we want to be able to see that path. So make sure that's on. And then go to File and Open. to go to your scenes folder for your project and find that FBX plane that you just exported and open it. All right, and there we go. There's our little path. So now, because we have painted on the model from Maya, we know exactly where that path is going to be when we go to paint here in Mudbox. So next we are going to subdivide this up. And in the handout I said to 1,000,000. We're at 16. Because my computer tends to get so slow, I'm only going to go up to like 200,000. So I'm going to stop here at 262,000. That should still be good enough to give me a nice texture. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and look at this from the top down. Okay, the tool we're going to be using for this is called the repeat tool. And what the repeat tool does is it allows you to repeat stamps. Where's the stamps at? Repeat these stamps over and over and over. So for example, we have this rock texture down here in the bottom right corner. And then if I click and drag, you can see that it just stamps, stamp, 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 stamp. Okay. So that might be something you could also use for like your walls or whatnot for your final project. All right, so what I'm going to do is make sure that the stamps settings are good, and I think that's actually a pretty good value because it's probably saving the values from when I did this before I recorded. So anyways, I'm at strength 15 for this, but you may have to play around to get a good result. Okay, next, let's go ahead and create our curve. And you do that by simply drawing right on here. So if I push B, let's go here. I'm just going to use this as a reference. And then just as close as you can get it. It's stopping there. Why are you stopping there? Let me make the brush smaller. There we go. All right, and if you want to, if you're not happy, if you want, like for example here, I'm not dead center, you can go to grab curve, and then just make the brush a little bigger, and then you can just tweak it to get it exactly where you want it to go. It's attached, right? Yeah. I'm gonna try smoothing up here. There we go. And then grab it and bring it back over here. There we go. All right, perfectionism. Okay, so actually let's move this one down a little bit so it's more centered. Okay, good. All right, now the reason we put this curve here is because we can turn on an option that allows the sculpting tools to snap to it. So you can see right now it's not snapping to the curve, but if I go to repeat, and then over here under my object list, there's the curve that I just created. If I right click, I can choose stroke on curve. And that, whoa, undo. Oh, it did it automatic for me. Oh, okay. Well, I don't want it to do it automatically for me, like I just saw a second ago. But now what you can see is that as I move the mouse, that it stays attached to that curve, like so. Okay. All right, but we need to do a couple more settings before we do that. So first off, I need to make my brush smaller. Whoa, we need to make the brush smaller, like so. Okay, there we go. All right, and let's see, what else do I need to do? Oh, I need to change the profile. Now it's probably still the same because like I said, I just got done doing this. No, it's not. Okay, so you want to change the profile for the stamp so that it's a little less big. There we go. All right, yeah, I thought it looked a little bit too strong a moment ago. All right, so that's what we're going to do, lower that profile on that curve and make it look just like that. And then I adjusted this one right here to look like that for the fall off. Okay, so go back to here. Let's go back to, let's see. Oh, and then the other thing the handout mentions changing an option called Orient to Surface. That actually used to be written out, Orient to Surface, but now it's this little button right here. And hopefully, yeah, you guys can see that pop up. It says Orient to Stroke. It's turned on by default, but if it's not turned on, you need to make sure to click that and activate it before you go to stamp. And now we're all set. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and go over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and start dragging along that curve. Oh, and then your stamp spacing, I forgot to set that. Okay, so the stamp spacing, yeah, it's left over from when I did this just a few, half hour ago. So the stamp space, you want to make sure you change that to a number around 90 before you stamp, okay? All right. So there you go. That's all done. Okay. Next, we are going to what are we going to do? We are going to assign the default material to this. So you're going to right click, and you guys can't see the pop-up menu. So you're going to right click, and then you're going to go to assign new material, or I'm sorry, assign existing material, and then you're going to choose to assign the default material to it. So again, it's a right click, assign existing material and default material to get it to here. All right. And then you can see a little bit better. Now, for some reason, it doesn't like to pick up that first stamp sometimes. So sometimes you got to go up here and then just drag down to kind of pick up the very end of the path. All right, cool. All right, next we are going to go to our paint tools and paint projection and start painting onto this. Now we could paint anything on this. We paint dirt, I mean, whatever image file, whatever stencil you want to use for your terrain, go for it. Snow, you know, desert sand, whatever. Just find a cool looking image file that you can use to paint onto this. And for a moment, I'm going to go ahead and hide the curve so that I'm not sticking to it while I paint. All right, so paint projection, and then we're going to go to layers. And I just realized I should, in my sculpting layers, I should have made a layer for this. It turns out I'm going to be able to get away with it, but just as a matter of practice, you should always put stuff in a layer so that it's easy to undo if you make a mistake later on. All right, so let's go to paint and then make a new paint layer. Okay, and this is going to be grass. Okay, and down here under stencils, you're going to want to find that grass picture. Those are pretty big blades of grass for that house, so you're going to want to scale it down by hitting S and then right clicking. I did this earlier too. S and then right click and drag it down so that the grass is roughly the size of an actual blade of grass. Okay, and next I'm going to turn on tiling for that stencil. And I'm going to make my brush very big and then just paint that sucker in. Okay. Now you can see a little bit of tiling in it. All right, so if you want, you can go ahead and make the brush smaller and then just move it slightly and then just kind of tap on it in different spots just to kind of break up that monotony. So let's go ahead and move. There we go. So it's just not so obvious that you had it tiled. All right, there you go. That's it. So I got to do to paint the grass. Oh shoot, I moved it around. Oh yeah. Yeah, I should be able to line it up okay. My curve's not going to line up anymore with the path. All right, so because I moved it around like that. So I should have waited till I was done painting the path before I randomized this. Okay, anyways, let's go back to here. Let's turn the curve back. Oh, what? Did it move with? Oh, it moves with it. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. All right, there you go. I thought that the curve wouldn't be lined up anymore. All right, I got lucky. All right, so what are we doing next? Next, we're going to go ahead and paint the path in for our rocks. So let's go ahead and make a new layer for that. Okay, and call it rock. And I'm going to choose some type of stencil. I find that this one tends to work pretty good. Let's change the size. It's so annoying when it does that. Press S and then right click. There we go. Okay, that looks like it should be good. And then make sure your brush is the size of the path. And then stencil it using the curve. And I'm pressing Q to turn that stencil on or off. All right. Just like that. Okay. Next, we're going to use the dry brush. I wonder if I zoom. Yeah, it stays the same size. Earlier I did this and it was not, the curve was not, it was, the plane would change, but the curve wouldn't. All right, so you can see that there I've painted the rock pattern to look like rock. Okay, next I'm going to use the dry brush tool, and I tried to use this in the example that I gave where I showed you guys kind of a hint on how to do your the bricks. So what we're going to do is we want to fill in where in between the fill in between where the bumps are that should be rocks and make them darker. So the dry brush is what we can use to do that. So as you can see, you probably can't read it in the pop-up, but you can kind of see it in the picture. The dry brush can be used to paint raised surfaces or lowered surfaces of something. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and then let's see for my options. I have snapped curve turned on. That's all fine. And then for the color, I'm going to make this into a dark color. It doesn't have to necessarily be black, but it should be like a dark color. And then the other thing is that by default, the dry brush paints onto the raised portion of something. Oh, why is it not painting? Oh, okay. That's odd. Might have to do it manually without using the curve. Let me turn the curve off for a second. Oh, it's working. It's just very subtle. Okay, let me undo all this. Shoot. Yeah, it was working. I can see it changing color. It just was. Okay, redo. There we go. Okay, so where am I? Okay, going back to here. The strength. Yeah, that's what you want to adjust. So you're going to adjust the strength to, let's see. I can't remember off the top of my head. For the dry brush. 50 is what I said. Okay. So yeah, it was set to 20. That's why it wasn't having much of an effect. Okay. And instead of clicking and dragging with the dry brush, you're going to hold Control. And what that's going to do, it almost seems like it doesn't like, oh, that's interesting. I turn the curve off. Maybe it's because the color's too light. Let's try that. There we go. That's what we want. So as it looks, I'd like to do it with the curve if I could. Oops. Gotta press Control when you do it. There we go. All right. Now we're in business. So you're probably going to have to do like I'm doing here. Go over it multiple times. Whoops. Redo all those. So like you see me doing here, I'm having to go over it several times. I keep forgetting to press Control. There. Stop doing that. Keeps jumping off the curve. You know what? Screw it. Forget you, curve. Just gonna do it manually. There we go. So like I was saying earlier, like if you're putting brick, like a brick stencil, you can do the same trick to kind of to try to darken up between the bricks. So like if you're trying to make it look like cement, you could make this like a gray and make it gray between the bricks on your stencil. Okay. Okay, so that just really makes it so that the so the rocks stand out a little bit more. There we go. Got it. Okay, cool. All right, next, let's see. Next, we're going to go ahead and paint a subtle highlight across the top of the... oh, shoot. I should have made a layer for that. I should have made a layer for the dry brush. Oh, well. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a layer for the highlights. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to the dry brush, and I'm going to make it a light color. And this time I'm going to paint across the tops of the rocks. Now you don't want to drag over it because it'll just turn completely white. You're just going to maybe even go over it. That's still too. Let's go ahead and lower the strength down to 25. And so now I'm not pressing Control and I'm just painting across the raised part of the rocks to give it a highlight. Let's really make these textures stand out. There we go. All right, that looks good to me. A little bit too strong. I probably could have lowered that even more. But anyway, so there's without the highlight. Okay. All right, and we are almost done. So next we're going to go ahead and create the normal map and the color map that we can export and bring over to Maya. So let's go ahead and start by exporting the colors. Okay, and then I mean, also I guess worth mentioning is when you're going to create your own terrain, you know, your path could be something different. Again, I mean, any image you can find can be used as a stencil. So you could, let's see, so you could paint projection. So you could use like this is like a wood texture. But anyways, you can find a picture of dirt, sand, I mean, whatever you want to do. You know, if there's like a brick pattern that you want to use, that you can find a neat brick pattern, you could use that instead. So just be creative when you go to do that. All right. All right, so to export these, you're going to right click and then choose not export channel merged, but we want to just, oh yeah, we do, export channel merged. And then you're going to choose the file type, save it as a JPEG, and then give it a name, call it something like terrain. I already have that name typed in there. And then save that into your source images folder for your project. All right, next you're going to make a normal map by going to UVs and maps, extract texture maps, and then we're going to make a normal map. It should automatically figure out that you're going from the high to the low level. Turn on smooth source. Turn on closest to low res mesh. Give it a little anti-aliasing. Turn off the preview, and then choose to save it in your source images folder for your project. Oh, and then give it a name. So normal. All right, and then extract it. It shouldn't take very long. All right, and that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and just, before I close Mudbox and lose all that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I got the file. So I'm going to go into my Wild West project source images folder, and there I go. Got it. I got my terrain. I got my normal map. Let's see. Oops. Make it bigger. Yeah, I can see the rock pattern on there. Okay, cool. All right, let's go back to Mudbox and close it down. And as usual, you notice I didn't have to save the mud file. It's because that's what you're normally doing, is you're just creating all your files for your material and then put them over in Maya, and then you don't need to continue to save the high res version unless you want to save it so you can bake other maps like maybe ambient occlusion or something like that as well. All right, let's go ahead and get rid of this guy. We don't need it. And then let's go back to our other plane by hitting F and framing it. All right, next we are going to go ahead and give this a new material. We're going to go ahead and right click and choose assign new material. And we're going to give this a blend material. Over here in your blend properties under color, we're going to attach the terrain. So we're going to go to file and select our terrain image that we just made, and just like that, look at that. It really improves the overall appearance of your structure to have it grounded in some type of terrain rather than just kind of floating around in space. All right, and then next let's go ahead and apply the normal map by going to the bump channel, file, use as a tangent space normal, and then choose your normal map. And that's just going to make it so that it looks like it has more texture to it than it would otherwise. Okay, let's see if hardware looks better, or I'm sorry, high quality looks better. Yeah, that actually looks a little better. You can see the normal map a little bit better. And remember, the more you look at it from the side, the less the normal map is going to actually work. It's really only when you look at it from the top. So that's another case for kind of making your terrain not just completely flat. If you make it kind of have some bump to it, that'll make the normal map pop off of it a little bit better. All right. So there you go. That's how you can easily create terrain and paths for your final project. And that's it, you guys. You're all done. There's no other stuff for me to teach you this semester. All right, so just before we wrap up here, you still have exam 5 coming up. I'm kind of going back and forth whether I want to make you guys do that like before finals week, or if I'm just going to give you all week to do it and just have you do both the final and exam 5 on the same day. I'm not sure. I mean, that's just giving you guys like a ton of time to do it. But the final exam will be posted pretty soon, and you'll have all the way till the end of next week to do that. So all the way till June 12th. That's the Friday of next week. And then that's also going to be the deadline for your final project is going to be the last day of finals week. And then the way you should submit it, so let's say that this is my final project, is the way you've been submitting other things. Now don't turn in any of your Mudbox files. All I want for your final project is the low poly version of your model and the terrain and some type of path around it. Remember, you can use other structures that are in those other files, but if you don't want to do that, if you just want to have your structure and your terrain, that's okay. That's enough to get full credit for the final project. But you're just going to go ahead and, as usual, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to, oh, I never saved it. So yeah, you want to make sure you go to File, Save As. And let's call this terrain. There's my old one. I'll just save over the top of that one. Okay. And then as usual, you're going to zip up your project folder and then upload that to Canvas. So that one right there, right click, and then send to compressed zip folder. So that's going to be what you submit for your final project, just like you've been doing for all your labs up to this point. Okay, that's it, you guys. All right. I will probably post another announcement here, just kind of reminding you of everything. But as usual, if you guys are stuck on anything or need help with anything, please don't hesitate to send me an email or send me an inbox email. All right, take care, you guys, and I'll talk to you again soon.